Hey there guys, welcome to the next tutorial here on the channel. I've gotten a lot of requests to make Thor's mighty hammer Mjolnir, especially with the Avengers coming out in less than a week. So I thought I'd film a tutorial and show you how to make this awesome prop. This is going to be a hybrid tutorial. They're going to use a few other things besides duct tape. So without any further ado, let's discuss the materials that you're going to need. So for this tutorial, you're going to need a pen, you're going to need 2 colors of duct tape, the mud puddle brown and the regular gray, and you can use black, that's going to be optional. I'll go over that at the very end of the tutorial. You're going to need a cardboard tube like this. Now the cardboard tubes that come in the toilet paper rolls are actually too small, they're about half this. You're going to need one that comes like from a paper towel roll, which is where this came from, and you want it to be like pretty much one giant solid piece. And you're going to need a few pieces of cardboard, and this is just to start off, and I'll show you what you're going to need later on. But these sheets here are 8 inches long by 4 inches high, and you're going to start off with 4 of those. So it doesn't really matter what kind of cardboard you use, but the tougher cardboard it is, the tougher your hammer is going to last, and you can actually use it to hit stuff. So which is kind of cool. So let's get started here on with the first steps of the tutorial. Okay, we don't actually need to use the duct tape for a little while now, so what we're going to do is going to take our first sheet here, and once again these are 8 inches long by 4 inches high. You're going to take your giant tube here, your cardboard tube, and you're going to take a pen and you're going to trace directly around this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to go all the way around here. Make sure that your tube is pretty much a circle. Sometimes these things get flattened when you have your giant roll of paper towels on them. So make sure it's totally circular. And then what you're going to do is you have that circle, you're going to cut out that right there. And you don't want to cut out exactly the way the circle is, you can cut out just a little bit less, and that'll make sure it's nice and snug when you do stick the cardboard tube into there. So cut that circle out, and then we'll start making the actual part of the hammer. Now we have the hole cut out, and I've tried it with the tube here to make sure that it is nice and snug and it fits pretty well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut out a strip of gray tape that is 8 inches long, because that's the length of the cardboard sheet here. You're going to take another one of your sheets, this is your second one. Like I said, we have 4 total to start out. And you're going to stick about half of it on this piece here, and then half of it on the other side. When you are cutting these cardboard pieces out, you want to make sure that they're all pretty much exactly the same. Otherwise your hammer might end up being a little bit lopsided, which is really up to you, but you want to be pretty much as precise as you possibly can be. So that connects that one side there. Now you're actually going to keep doing this on this side over here with another piece, and then another piece on top here like this. So you're pretty much just making a giant rectangular box with all those other strips that you're going to attach. Okay? So that's pretty much what you're going to do next, and then after that we'll have the basis, the core part of the hammer, and then we can work on the sides. So tape all those pieces together so you do have a cardboard box, one side here and then one side right on top with those other 8-inch strips that are gray. So this is essentially what it's going to look like once you've gotten all the pieces connected. Now it's going to be a little bit floppy, and that's just fine because basically we're going to put sides on the end here, and that'll pretty much hold it from flopping back and forth. So like I said, obviously this is the bottom part of the hammer where the tube is going to go into. Now we're going to work on the cardboard pieces that go on the sides here. And there's a little bit of a kind of a 3D effect for those, so let's discuss that right now. I'll show you how to make these 2 end pieces. So when you're making your end pieces, you want to cut out 2 squares of cardboard that are slightly larger than this piece here. Now if I were to line this up on top here, you can see that there is a little bit showing on all around the sides, and that gives it a kind of a 3D effect, which I'll show you on my original hammer here. Now if you look on the top here, it's not actually one sheet and that's just flush with the actual part of the rectangle. It actually comes up just a little bit like the kind of the first step on a pyramid, and that's exactly kind of the 3D effect that you want. And to achieve this, you have to cut out a piece of cardboard that's actually bigger than this, and then we're going to cut it on the sides. That will create this base of the pyramid, which you see right on here, and give it a nice 3D effect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come a little bit on the inside here, and you want to cut it in just a little bit. You don't want to go too far. Like I said, you can always cut more in, so you can just cut a little bit, and then you can always cut a little bit more in if you need to. But it's going to be hard to backpedal a little bit if you need to. Just like that. And then what you want to do is you want to kind of just get these used to being bent like this. So you want to take a few and just kind of bend them like this. And now you can kind of see that pyramid start to take shape, or that first base of the pyramid. So just keep doing that. And you want these cut enough so that they can flex more or less all by themselves without affecting a different piece to fold down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to attach that to our hammer over here. Now here's the part where it gets a little bit tricky because you want to fit this right onto the open end of the hammer here. And I did round the edges a little bit just to make sure that it fits pretty well. I cut it a little bit larger than I needed to. And what you're going to do is you're going to set it on top just like this. And you want to cut out a strip of tape that's just the length of this side over here, for example. And you want to just simply attach it with a piece of duct tape like this. But you want this piece here to be slightly on an angle so that you can achieve that 3D effect that you want when you make your hammer. So you attach that one side. And you're going to have to work with this a little bit to make it look good. It's not going to happen like automatically. I did spend a little bit of time working on my other hammer to make sure that it did come out looking really nice. So now what you want to do is come directly across to the other side and start to bend this one like this. Make sure it lines up over here, and then take this piece of tape and stick that down just like this as well. And then you can try to do your best to line it up with the sheet on the bottom right here. It's going to be a little bit tricky, but like I said, you can always tear it off and adjust it if it doesn't quite fit on the first try. Okay, so now what you want to do is take your two side ones and curl them in like this and do exactly the same thing. And you can always trim off any little bit of little extra tape that you see eventually, you know, when you put the rest of the tape on here. So this is what it's going to look like when you have all of the sides, you know, taped on. I guarantee you, if you spend a little bit of time with it, it's not going to look exactly this crude, but I'm just kind of giving you guys the idea, and you can spend a little bit of time to make it look really nice, because it did take me a little bit of time to make sure that it did come out correctly and make it look like a really good prop. So once you do it on this side, you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our cardboard tube here, and we're going to stick that in just like this. And you can pretty much go to the very top, and that'll make a nice handle for your hammer. So make sure that it's touching the top over here. Then what you're going to do is going to take several strips of tape, and you're just going to stick these on just like this. And there are no other materials that we're going to use. There's no glue, no hot glue or anything like that. No crazy glue we're going to use. We're going to use all duct tape and cardboard for this creation. You don't really need to use anything else. So we got those two taped on, and you can use a pair of scissors, you know, trim it like this. That'll allow it to flex a little bit. The actual handle is going to be covered in brown tape, so you don't need to worry about that too much. And this entire hammer piece we're going to cover with gray tape, or I should say you're going to cover it with gray tape when you're making it. Unless you really use this to you know, as an actual prop of hitting things, this should hold up pretty well. So don't actually, you know, try to go after anybody with it. And it is just cardboard, it's not going to hold up that well. But it's definitely not as heavy as Thor's hammer, I can guarantee that. Okay, so now we got that stuck on there. Now what we're going to do is going to cover this with brown tape and this with gray tape. And then obviously, like I said, this will already be done because you already have done this side just like you have that side. And then we'll put the strap on the bottom, and then you'll pretty much have your hammer. Okay, so rather than take the time to cover this whole second hammer with duct tape, I just simulated exactly what it's going to look like when you cover all of this with gray tape and then this on the handle with the brown tape. And let's kind of compare it to with the other hammer here and show you exactly, you know, what else you can do and the little things. Obviously, the entire hammer here covered with brown tape on the handle, and it did cover with brown tape up here, but then I just took some gray tape and covered it up with that. You can see the 3D effect on the sides here. This little top piece, this isn't the actual, you know, like tube on the inside poking through. This is just a cardboard piece that was cut out, laid on top, kind of like just like a flat piece, and I just covered with gray tape to make it look like it's the actual, you know, handle coming through the other side, but it isn't. It's just laid on top. This is just one solid piece on top here. The loop is really simple to make, just a few strips of duct tape stuck on there, and then you got a little bit of loop. I wouldn't exactly recommend carrying it like that because it is kind of just stuck on there. Like I said earlier, with the black duct tape, you can add the little bit of the wrap pattern that the actual hammer has in the film, because it's probably wrapped with a leather or some other fabric, and you can kind of, you know, can imitate that with a little bit of the triangles that you see on the hammer in the movie, and that'll make it look like it's wrapped. The actual duct tape is wrapped in that kind of direction, though. As you can see there, it is wrapped in that direction when I did put it on there. I think it just came like that by accident, but that's how to make Thor's mighty hammer, Mjolnir. And it would be kind of cool if you took this to the Avengers premiere. It would be kind of cool. Definitely would make you a pretty popular guy there, that's for sure, or if you want to carry this around. Sure, so it's a lot of fun to make, and hopefully you guys get an idea of how to make it. This is exactly what it's going to look like when you're, you know, halfway through it. Cover with gray tape, wrap all this with brown tape, put the little little strap on here, the little thing on top, and you've got an awesome hammer that you can use as a prop. So hopefully you guys enjoy the tutorial. Catch the Avengers in theaters May 4th or midnight on May 3rd if you want to go to the premiere. And I'll catch you guys next time on the channel. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial.